Recording started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draft Utopia. I'm Joseph Otto. This is Chris Ransom, and we have a very special guest today. But before that, we got a little bit of news to take care of. Chris, what we got going on?
Well, thanks for the intro, Joey. Our guest today will be Gannon quarterback Kory Curtis. We will have him on at 10:30. I have a Twitter space set up for that. I have I'm gonna go.
Now, looks like Chris had a little bit of an issue here. But no worries. I'm sure he'll be back in a second. And until he gets back,
Eastern Conference
we've actually
playoff spots and
there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm here,
cut out
Joey.
there for a second. All right.
Okay.
Let's go.
So there are 13 teams that have clinched playoff spots in the NHL. 6 in the East, 7 in the West. Boston, Toronto, and Tampa Bay have locked up the top 3 seeds in the Atlantic Division. Carolina, New Jersey, and the New York Rangers have locked up the top 3 seeds in the Metropolitan Division. What's uncertain is how each team will seed in the Metropolitan Division, because New Jersey could still get the number 1 seed from Carolina. In fact, if the Hurricanes lost out and the New York Rangers finished with the number 1 seed, assuming New Jersey and Carolina both lost out, the New York Rangers could still theoretically get the number 1 seed in the Metropolitan Division. So while the seeding's unclear in the Metropolitan Division, we know that those are going to be the top 3 teams, regardless of what order they finish in. The Boston's going to be the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They're going to get the worst wild card team, and Toronto's going to host Tampa Bay again. That's all we know. But there are 4 teams in the East competing for the last 2 wild card spots. The Florida Panthers with 89 points in 79 games played. The New York Islanders, Lisa's team, 89 points, 79 games played. The Pittsburgh Penguins, 79 games played, 88 points. The Pittsburgh Penguins, if the season ended today, the Pittsburgh Penguins' 16-year streak of making the Stanley Cup playoffs would end at 16 years. And the Buffalo Sabres have 83 points in 77 games played. I don't think the Sabres get in, but their goalie, Devin Levy, they got Devin Levi in a trade with the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers drafted Devin Levi from the NHL draft that we both talked about. Devin Levi is from that 2020 NHL draft to make it to the NHL, and he's been 2-1 as a starter. He's been the Brock Purdy of it. But he is the first goalie from that draft class to make it to the NHL. And he's 2-1 as a starter for Buffalo and in 3 games. So if Buffalo win their 5 games, 9 points, they're currently at 83 points, 6 points behind Florida, 6 points behind the Islanders, and 5 points behind the Penguins. I don't think they get in, though, because Buffalo hosts Carolina today. Then they go on the road to face New York and New Jersey next week. Both of those teams are trying to improve their position, so they're not going to rest their starters. And Buffalo won their first game against the Rangers in Devin Levi's debut in Buffalo, but this time they'd have to go to Madison Square Garden and deal with the Ranger fans. And I think the crowd's going to be much louder there compared to Buffalo. So I think Buffalo gets eliminated next week. And I think this is going to come down to whether the Florida Panthers can defeat Toronto at home on Monday. That is ultimately what this is going to come down to, because the New York Islanders get 3 non-playoff teams. They get 1 on the road and 2 at home. The Pittsburgh Penguins get the Red Wings today at 1, and then their final 2 games are against the Chicago Blackhawks and Columbus Blue Jackets, the 2 worst teams in the NHL right now. So as long as Pittsburgh does not slip up against one of the league's worst teams, as long as the Penguins handle business, They should be in. But I think Florida would have to beat Toronto on Monday to keep the Penguins from making the playoffs. That's ultimately what this comes down to. Now, in the Atlantic Division, and they know they're playing the Lightning, they rest on Monday. If they prepare for Tampa with home ice, they can just rest their starters because the Lightning have 96 points, Toronto has 103. Even if the Lightning win their final 3 games, they would still finish a point behind Toronto, and Toronto would have home ice for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I'm just saying, Toronto might rest their guys against Florida on Monday. I don't know, but if they do, Florida should win that game at home. But that's really what the Penguins' fate comes down to. The Penguins need Toronto to win that game to get in, essentially. Because
it doesn't even really matter with the way the NFL or the NHL goes because it's all on points. So they could win that game. Pittsburgh, like 1-0, and Pittsburgh could go on by just 1 point more than they need, and they're in. So, or they could lose and still get 1 more point in their end.
Pittsburgh is 88 points. Florida and Islanders have 89 points. As long as the Penguins win out and the Islanders regulation game, they're in.
Yeah, but they don't even have to win out. It's just score more points than your opponent. So
you have to win to get points in the NHL. You have to win to get points, or lose in regulation or overtime. You have to lose in overtime. Overtime loss gets you 1 point. A regulation win gets you 2 in regular season. Just Florida's last 3 opponents are the Washington Capitals. The Capitals are out this year. This time in a while that the Capitals have missed the playoffs with Alex Ovechkin. So they're out of the playoffs this year. And 2 games against the Islanders and Florida Panthers. So are the Capitals going to try to position them higher odds in the NHL draft, or are they going to play their best guys on home ice and playoff team? That's really a question because there's nothing really the Capitals make they're essentially out at this point. But they could be a trap game. If Florida comes into Washington thinking, the Capitals aren't going to give it their best, they could surprise people and play spoiler to both the Panthers and the Islanders. For a Penguins fan, you need to be rooting for the Capitals because the Capitals can afford the Islanders from getting in, and they can help Pittsburgh improve their playoff chances. Chicago, and they play worst team in the Eastern team. It's Florida. Carolina. So, Florida could remember. This is the same team that won the trophy. They're not the same team. They shook up the roster a little bit, but when Florida won the President's Trophy, they were down 3-0 to Tampa Bay, and then they went to a strip club and pretty much gave up at that point. This year, they shook up the roster a little bit. They've had injuries at goalie, but there's Alex Lyon, a goalie from Yale, has won 5 in a row for the Panthers, and they control their own destiny right now. And right now, the Panthers and Islanders have the highest goal differentials at +18. The Penguins are at -2, and the Sabres are at -6. I'm not saying the Penguins can't get in, but they would need Florida or the Islanders to slip up. And the Islanders play the Canadiens at home, who are out of the playoffs. They play the Capitals on the road on Monday, and the New York Islanders host the Philadelphia Flyers tonight, who are also out of the playoffs. So the Islanders have 2 home games against teams that are eliminated. I think the Islanders are in. I think that if Pittsburgh were to get in, Florida would have to slip up against Carolina, Toronto, or the Washington Capitals. Saying that can't happen. But I think the Islanders are going to get in. I think the Islanders are going to win out, and they're going to secure that number 1 wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. And in winner, that number 2 wild card spot, and the team that will be heading to Boston, it'll come down to whether Florida finishes things against 3 strong opponents, or whether the Penguins can just win and finish the year strong. And I'm not saying the Penguins can't get in, but they would have to lose one of their last 3, or to lose one of 3 to avoid playing the Boston Bruins in round 1. I just think the Islanders are going to win out. They have a really schedule hockey-wise, and the toughest game left on the Islanders' schedule is Monday night's game against the Capitals in Washington. So that's the toughest game left on their schedule. The other 2 games are home games, so I think the Islanders get in. I'm going to pick the Islanders and Penguins to get in, but I will not be surprised if Florida wins out and keeps the Penguins from getting in. We're going to learn a lot tonight with the NHL standings. I'm going to transition to the Western Conference here because 7 teams in the West have clinched playoff spots. Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota are all the top 3 teams in the Central Division. Vegas, Edmonton, and the LA Kings are currently the top 3 teams in the Pacific Division. The Seattle Kraken got in as the first wild card team. So the Seattle Kraken are the first wild card team, and they could still theoretically get a top 3 spot in the Pacific Division if they win out. Now, right now, the Winnipeg Jets and Calgary Flames are tied for the last wild card spot. But Winnipeg has played 1 fewer Calgary, and Nashville Predators have 88 points. They played 78 games like Winnipeg. Nashville is injured, so I think I think my cover over Winnipeg. So conference spot in the Eastern Conference in the West, Joey, but we'll preview a lot at the NBA play-in scenario. We'll have Kory Curtis on the call because it's 10:16. I want to be efficient with this, and I don't want to take up too much time, but if you got something you want to say on these scenarios really quickly before we get to the NBA play-in games, you have the floor.
Yeah, I really don't think any of these teams are out of it, and I really do think Pittsburgh could end up getting in, whether even if they don't win. I think they could end up getting enough points to overcome Florida. And
Florida's got a tough schedule. I mean, they got to face Washington tonight, then they host Toronto, and then they host Carolina. So they host 2 of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference to end the year. Those are not games they're guaranteed to win. You know, Carolina hasn't secured the number 1 spot in their division yet. And if they don't by Thursday, they're going to be playing their best guys against Florida. But,
yeah, and Penguins, like you said, the only thing the Penguins have to do really is get to overtime. Yeah, and the only thing that the Penguins really have to do is get to overtime in one of those games and maybe win. And if Florida can't, get it done, then, one overtime game will probably do it for Pittsburgh.
Because I think we agree the Islanders are in with home games against the Montreal Canadiens and Flyers, 2 teams that are out of the playoffs who have injuries everywhere. They're going to win both of those games, and they should be the first wild card. But I think Pittsburgh will get in as the 8th seed. But, Florida, if they win out, more credit to them, more power to them. All right. The West isn't as interesting. I think Calgary and Nashville could do some damage, but Winnipeg on paper, I think, is the best of those 3 teams right now. Their plus 16 goal differential is better than Calgary's plus 8 goal differential and Nashville's minus 8 goal differential. So I think Winnipeg will get in. Calgary and Nashville could make things interesting, but try for the NBA. Yeah, Winnipeg gets San Jose tonight, and yeah, so Winnipeg gets Winnipeg's gets San Jose Monday. The Winnipeg Jets, they get Nashville tonight. So Nashville, that's a huge game to know, because if Nashville that, they would jump Winnipeg. If it goes to overtime, when it loses, Nashville and Winnipeg are essentially tied in points. So that they played tonight, but Winnipeg's got games against Sanville. Then they go to Minnesota against Colorado. Colorado, Minnesota on the road, 2 teams in the West that have gotten in. That's going to be tough. And that is where Nashville or Calgary could find themselves in a spoiler position. Nashville hosts Minnesota to end the year. Nashville also plays Monday against Calgary, and then Nashville plays Colorado on Friday. Nashville can make things interesting. Winnipeg 2 games. Work whether Bill does enough in for that last wild card or whether they play themselves out of elimination. We'll know by Monday whether or not Nashville gets in. We'll switch to the NBA play-in games once he resumes. Yeah. So I'm still here. I'm just waiting for Joey to get back on the call. His phone disconnected for a second. And I've also messaged Kory Curtis about the interview. So we've just reached 8,100 followers on Twitter. But NBA play-in, I'm going to transition to the NBA now. And I think the Lakers will win, and their playoff team will be Minnesota. Oklahoma City doesn't have Chet Holmgren, and New Orleans doesn't have Zion Williamson. So I think by default, the Western Conference, the Lakers will end up as the 7th seed. The Lakers are Golden State. Whoever doesn't get that, well, the Golden State's now the 5. Clippers are now the 6th seed. It's possible that, and the Clippers have played 80 of their 82 games. So the Lakers play the Jazz at 3:30 in their final regular season game. And the Clippers play the Suns on the road. And then so I guess the Clippers, no, there's only 3 NBA games today. And the Clippers plays at their Clippers guarantee. win out, they're guaranteed. If they lose out tomorrow, they're in. In the Eastern Conference, it's interesting. You've got Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, Chicago. And we'll discuss this briefly when Joey gets back. But I think Atlanta's going to get the 7 seed. They're going to end up being the Heat. And I think Toronto beats the injury-riddled Chicago Bulls. And the 8 seed's going to come down to Miami and Toronto for the right to head to Milwaukee. So essentially, all right, so yeah, Joey's network dropped. But the NBA playoffs, I think Atlanta's going to get in. Atlanta, a lot of injuries earlier in the season with Trae Young. And they brought in Quinn Snyder to replace Nate McMillan. Quinn Snyder, he was the Utah Jazz coach for 8 years. He resigned last year before the Jazz front office decided to blow up the team and trade Donovan Mitchell in the summer and trade Rudy Gobert to Minnesota at the NBA draft. Quinn Snyder was the coach of that Utah Jazz team for 8 years. And now he's with Atlanta. And I think Quinn Snyder is going to be the difference. Atlanta's healthy at the right time. And with Quinn Snyder coaching them, I think the sky is the limit. Atlanta, outside of the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Bucks, I think on paper, when fully healthy, the Hawks are probably the best team in this entire conference. They're going to be a tough out for either Boston or Milwaukee. I think they force 6. They win 2 games against. I think Atlanta will win 2 games against Boston or Milwaukee. They'll lose the series, but I think they will make it a competitive opening round series. Either way. I mean, if the circumstances were different, so yeah. And I'm going to pick the Hawks to win that. I'm leaning towards Toronto, but it's tough because I think Toronto's got the better starting 5. But if they beat Chicago, they're going to have to go to Miami to win that second play-in game in Miami at American in Miami, Florida. They're going to have to go to that second game. And Joey's back on the call. And I've been quickly discussing the NBA play-in scenario. The Western Conference has 4 teams. Well, the Western Conference is a little bit uncertain right now. We know the 4 teams playing in the play-in game in the Eastern Conference, but the Western Conference, you have the Clippers are 42-38. Assuming they win today, they'll be 43-38. But right now, you have the Warriors, Clippers, Lakers, Pelicans, Timberwolves, Oklahoma City in the play-in round. Dallas Mavericks were eliminated. Eventually, the top 10 teams in the West have been decided. We just don't know who's going to go to the play-in round. But looking at the Western Conference, I love Denver's starting 5. I love Sacramento's starting 5. You can't rule out the Phoenix Suns with their star power with DeAndre Ayton, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul. You can't rule the Suns out. Memphis has good starters everywhere except at center. Center is the weakness on the Memphis Grizzlies, but Phoenix doesn't have that second forward to complement Durant either, but they're in the top 4. Golden State's, all their starters are healthy. All of the Clippers starters are healthy. All the Lakers starters are healthy. So the top 7 in the West looks really deep this year. Pelicans don't have Zion Williamson, but they're currently the 8 seed. They were the 1 seed back in January, tied with Denver before Zion's injury. Zion just can't seem to stay healthy. Timberwolves are 40-40. And the Oklahoma City Thunder, despite losing Chet Holmgren, the number 2 draft pick, to a season-ending injury, the Oklahoma City Thunder have somehow managed to best the Dallas Mavericks and get into the play-in round. And I think they will be an easy out. I think the Pelicans, without Zion, they're going to be another one of these teams that ends up getting eliminated. So I think ultimately the Lakers and Timberwolves will get the final 2 seeds in the West, and they'll win the play-in games to get in. I think the Timberwolves can beat Oklahoma City and New Orleans, assuming Zion Williamson doesn't come back. I think Minnesota can win those 2 games to get in as the 8 seed. I mean, Minnesota traded for Rudy Gobert during last year's NBA draft to pair with Towns. You have D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Sim, and this the guy from the shooting guard from Georgia you drafted number 1 overall, Anthony Johnson, maybe that's his name. But I think the Lakers in Minnesota, it's we're not going to know who officially gets in until next Saturday. All games are Miami versus Chicago and Atlanta versus Toronto. And Quinn Snyder's taken over for Snyder had 8 good years with the Utah Jazz before resigning because he just felt like moving on for personal reasons. And he goes to an Atlanta team with a good starting 5. Trae Young had some injuries earlier in the season. They're healthy now. I think Atlanta beats Miami on Monday in Miami and cures the 7 seed. And I think Toronto beats the Bulls, who made it to the play-in tournament despite losing Lonzo Ball in November and looking like a bottom 5 team at one point. So I think that last playoff spot's going to come down to Toronto or Miami. And I think Toronto's starting 5 is better than Miami's, but Miami's the home court advantage. 2 home games. They just have to win 1 to get in, and they got Eric Spoelstra. So it's for Toronto. I mean, Tony Mario is a Heat fan. Brian Bayless is a Raptors fan. And then the Hawks, who are the East. Even though they're 8 seed right now, outside of the Cavs, Celtics, Hawks, most dangerous team in the Eastern Conference. Anything you want to add to the play-in round quickly? 2 teams from the play-in round get in. We get to our guest, Kory Curtis.
I'm not really a big fan of the play-in round. I'll say my opinion for, the actual playoff games.
Come on. No, audience like on a cliffhanger.
I gotta keep it interesting.
All right. That noise is Twitter Spaces. Okay, they never had the ringtone before, but I just invited Kory Curtis. Hey, are you on the call? Thanks for joining, man. Kory, thanks for joining, man. Are you on the call?
Yes, I'm on the call.
Awesome. So can you hear Joey? Can you hear Kory?
Yeah, he's a little faint, but I can still hear him.
I'll put my phone closer to the computer so you can hear audio better, if that helps.
Thank you.
All right. So we're here with Gannon quarterback Kory Curtis. A lot to discuss. We're both residents of Florida. I was born in Coral Springs. I think you were Cape. You played high school football in Florida, I believe, before enrolling at Ohio State. Correct?
Yes, sir. I was in Cape Coral.
That's closer to the Tampa Bay region. I mean, Coral Springs is near Miami, and Florida is a huge state. Like, people don't realize how big of a state it is, but it is an amazing state to live in.
It is. I miss it.
Yeah, Joey's currently a resident of Jacksonville, Florida, but the weather's nice. There's all kinds of locations and cities to go to there, but we'll talk football now because I'm curious what other schools offered you scholarships before you ultimately wound up at Ohio State, because we got to talk about the quarterback room there, and I'm sure there's other fun topics and questions Joey's got prepared as well. So take us through that process.
Yeah, so like out of high school, I took my visits to USC, West Virginia, North Carolina, University of Miami, UCF, and Louisville. So I took those are the schools that I was most interested in. And then like later on in my recruiting, I got a call, and it was like, hey, you should check this place out. You should come and check us out. So I flew out to Ohio State, and kind of like we want more of a pocket pass, some guy that can run a little bit. He's like, I'm new here, so it was Coach Day coming from the 49ers, so it was something that he wanted more of like a pro-style, typical quarterback, and I thought I could be that guy, so that's why I decided to go to Ohio State. And yeah, it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Yeah, that quarterback room was amazing there. They had JT Barrett, Joe Burrow, Dwayne Haskins, and yourself. So that quarterback room, the film sessions must have been pretty intense when you first got there, because I know Hartline's their receiver coach, and Ohio State's got a factory of wide receivers now. We can get into that a little later, but I want to discuss the quarterback room first, because I'm sure Joey coached football in Athens, Ohio, and he actually coached against Joe Burrow's dad, which is a pretty cool story. But let's talk about the quarterback room at Ohio State first.
Yeah, our quarterback room was pretty good. We had JT, which is like he holds almost every record, I feel like, in the Big Ten, and then we had Dwayne. Obviously, he was a beast, threw 50 touchdowns, and did his thing. And then Joe, he had one of the best college seasons probably ever. And now he's leading his NFL team to Super Bowls and stuff like that. So yeah, our room was pretty good. I know all of us would attribute it to Coach Day and Corey Dennis, like helping us in film study and just becoming more intellectual quarterbacks. More for me is probably Corey Dennis. He would come in whenever I asked him to, and because he was a GA at the time, and we would go over film for hours and hours and hours, and he would get on me over everything. So it was a great experience.
Joey, you got a question you'd like to ask Kory? Go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing I really like about your game is your ability to hold the ball high and get it out quick. Where did you learn that? Was that something you started learning in high school? Was it something that you learned as you went through your college career? Where did you learn to keep the ball up high like that?
So like growing up, my dad was always adamant about that. He'd like keep the ball up, and no matter the pass concept, 1-2 ball, like no matter what. So I attribute that to him, allowing me to be able to process things. And then at Ohio State, Coach Day, if in the film room, like he would ask you a question, and he'd be like 1-2, and then he'd be like, all right, Joe. And then if you didn't answer 1-2, then on to the next person, Dwayne, 1-2, Kory. Like, so like that, like you had to, if you didn't know it and that 1-2, then you weren't going to know it on the field when people were flying at you. So between my father and Coach Day is one of those things that helped me be able to process things faster, which helped me in this offense here at Gannon because everything was like a read route. Everything's kind of on the fly. It's to process what coverage it is, and then all the option routes and everything like that. So it was something that my game going further too.
Agreed. I mean, I know it's a little off topic, but one of the storylines this week was the improvement of Trey Lance's ball placement, the 49ers quarterback. He went to a private workout that Patrick Mahomes hosted at TCU's campus. And the thing Sports Illustrated and all other media writers were saying is that Trey Lance was placing the ball a lot higher. His ball placement and mechanics have taken a major improvement this offseason. And I think that was probably one of your big issues with Lance coming into the league. He was the last small school quarterback to get drafted in the top 5. And Joey, how would you compare I think, as bold as it sounds, I think you could make an argument that Curtis's ball placement, I don't know about the arm, the velocity. The reason Lance went so high is because he could really sling it. But like, there were questions with Lance's progressions, and I feel like there's still going to be a lot of things you got to improve and work on through the journey. But like, how do you feel about that news before we get back to Kory?
Well, the big thing with Trey Lance in that situation was that his fundamentals from top to bottom were flawed. They were a bit of a mess. Where Kory has really good fundamentals, especially with the upper body. Obviously, his footwork, as with every prospect, is going to need a little work. Every prospect's that way. But at the same time, if the upper body is good, then the lower body shouldn't have as much of a problem fixing because you've already got half the scenario taken care of.
Exactly. And one thing I want to add before Kory resumes speaking here is Trey Lance had 0 interceptions in 2019, but the thing I noticed is all of his throws were either one-read throws or he took off and scrambled at the FCS level. That's really difficult to do. And then when he started making 2 reads at North Dakota State, I think he threw an interception against Central Arkansas when they had Robert Rochelle, and that's when Rochelle first entered our radar. But let's get back to Kory here.
Yeah, I think the arm strength thing, I think I could argue with for sure. But I feel like just being able to play the quarterback position, I think that he relied on his legs a ton, and that's something that I don't have the liberty to be able to do because he runs a 4.4. Something like that. So I just think that I think it allows me to be more decisive and be able to stand in the pocket and go through all my reads rather than just tucking it around.
Yeah, and your size really does help that. You're 6'4", close to 240. That has to help when it comes to just being able to see over not only your offensive line but also the defense.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the footwork's good too. I've seen the variety of throws. Like when I'm scouting quarterbacks, I try to see, okay, can this quarterback make a 1-step, 3-step, 5-step, 7-step throw if needed? And I think you're one of the guys in this class. There's a few day 3 guys in this class, Stetson Bennett, Georgia, that can make all of those throws footwork-wise. And I think you've checked those boxes off my list, in my opinion. So, I mean, Joey, what did you like about Kory's footwork specifically? Because you were telling me
like
about
the balance.
Morning.
I do like the balance, especially for a big guy. I saw you against, I think it was California, PA, and you had guys flying at you there a couple times, and you didn't go down. You took it, you ducked with it, and you're able to just get your feet to keep yourself upright. And that's really impressive when you got guys flying at you, especially for your size.
Thank you.
And we've got a lot of people in our audience. John Capoletti has requested the microphone, so I'm going to let John ask a question here. John, you got a question? What would you like to ask? Okay, he's got his microphone turned off. Sorry. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Hey, Kory, it's John Capoletti, Jack Capoletti's dad.
How you doing?
Good, man. Good to hear your voice. So I just wanted to ask, I mean, Kory really lit it up at Bryant University. My son was a receiver during his tenure there. Can you talk a little bit about how that helped your career, Kory, and the impact that your time at Bryant had on you?
Sure. Yeah, at Bryant, it was kind of like my first opportunity to play in college. It was like a good experience that allowed me to be able to get used to the speed of the game and everything like that. And it also gave me the experience that I needed to be the quarterback that I am now. The receivers there definitely helped me out a lot. I think my first completion in college was to your son. I'm pretty sure on like a little hitch route on a stick. So
I believe it was. Yeah, you're right.
So it's one of those things where like it didn't end up being the place where I ended, but it was a good stop along my journey.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks for the question, John. That was a great question, and I had some questions about Bryant, but John pretty much took the question I had and presented it better. And I love the fact that his son and Kory Curtis played together at Bryant, and Kory was able to recollect and process that and articulate how that transpired. And that's the type of intelligence NFL teams are going to fall in love with, that ability to recall and process information. That's what I think is going to make you stand out as this process continues. What do you want to add, Joey? Do you have anything else you want to add? Because I've got some other questions I'll ask as well. But
I want to. I'm sitting here looking at some different things about Kory. Kory, could you just confirm? It says you have punting statistics.
Yes, so I punted here again, and I was the punter as well, and I did like extra points and stuff like that too.
Yeah. This website I'm on, GannonSports.com, says last year you had 36 attempts at almost 40 yards a clip and 5 50-plus yard punts. That's pretty darn impressive.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm just glad my head coach allowed me to do it because our punter moved back to Australia and we didn't have anybody else. So I was just thankful that he let me do it and be able to help the team in any way possible, for sure.
You know, the Chiefs, when Harrison Butker got injured earlier in the season, the Chiefs let Justin Reed play kicker in the opener against the Cardinals. He did pretty well in the opener, but he couldn't sustain that level of play over time. Do you think, I think everyone wants to play quarterback at the next level, but, it's just an intriguing scenario. I'm just saying that it is intriguing because, could we be seeing, if you've got other players on your team that are not kickers or punters, could we see a changing of the guard where other players end up converting to those positions so teams don't have to sign players at those positions? I'm not saying that will happen. I just think that's an intriguing possibility and scenario moving forward.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I know that it helped. So the quarterback at my high school before me was Kurt Benkert. So he played with the Falcons, played with the Packers. And how he made the 53-man roster is that he helped punt. Yeah, he punted and everything like that. So hopefully it's one of those things that if I'm on the brink of practice squad or making the 53-man roster or not making the team and making a team, that's something that they take into account and know that I can be utilized in other ways.
Yeah, Kurt Benkert's a pretty smart guy. I mean, he might not be on the Packers anymore, but he's very well detail-oriented, well thought out, extremely articulate, and he's not afraid to call people out or challenge them to get better. It's one of the things I loved about Kurt as a person and a prospect.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So, and it's something that I've got to throw with him and stuff like that. So it's something I got to see him do. So I kind of try to take a little bit away from everybody, like the quarterback that I was in, and from Kurt, and just other people that I know that are in the NFL.
Yep. I'm thinking. One thing I noticed is when you first got to Gannon. Okay, let's go back to Ohio State here. I want to know what kind of responsibilities you had as the scout team quarterback. I do have some questions about Gannon, but let's rewind for a second because I'm kind of curious how those responsibilities could sell you to an NFL team.
So like, yeah, at Ohio State my freshman year, I was live the entire time. So it was one of those things where I knew it was going to be a battle every single day against our starting defense. But I also had to like go in, like when we played Texas Tech, I had to act like I was back from home. When we go play like USC the one year, I had to act like I was Sam Darnold. So I just tried to emulate those people whenever I was playing. We watched a bunch of film on them. And I think that those situations allowed me to learn how to be like a good backup and help my teammates be better while still trying to make myself a better quarterback as well. So yeah, it was like Ohio State was one of the best experiences I've had.
Yeah, wasn't that the year Ohio State won the Cotton Bowl against USC? Because I think that was Sam Darnold's final collegiate game.
Yes. Yeah, that was the year.
And Kory, that
USC.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the big things that I don't know if you've heard Diamond Dallas Page. He once said, because he got into professional wrestling when he was 35, became a wrestler. Before that, he was a manager. And he said what helped him most was working down at the WCW power plant because teaching others helped him learn how to do the job. Is that kind of the way the scout team thing went?
Yeah. So, definitely. Like, it was one of those things where I went and like it taught me how to take a hit. It helped me memorize the different offenses and how they do their reads and then like Coach Shiano told me that like I gave them a better look than that they've seen since before I got there. So that was like such a blessing to have him be able to say that. And I eventually lost my stripe because of it at Ohio State because we did pretty good one day in a scrimmage against our defense. So yeah, it was definitely. I feel like you learn more whenever you're teaching somebody or you're actually doing it.
Thank you.
All right. I mentioned about Gannon. What is the first, like, your decision making got a lot better in your first year at Gannon. I noticed you went like 131 pass attempts in a row without an interception after the season opener in 2021. What was the transition like? Because I think by the time you went from Bryant to Gannon, you had a little bit more world experience under your belt. And Gannon is in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's actually the university is within the insurance arena where the Erie Otters, Connor McDavid's OHL team, plays their junior hockey games at. It's actually, because I was actually thinking about going to Erie for like a road trip because I know you have Lake Erie, you have the Erie Otters, and you have Gannon if there was ever a football game and a hockey game on the same day. So, I mean, that's the. But what was it like as Gannon as far as decision making goes, and when did things really begin to click?
It really began to click. Well, first off, just like the experience of playing, but all coach started per se stuff. I knew what I was seeing on. I was being able to process things. Call protection. I know where the. So okay, I have my X-Man here. I can also come back front side. I can switch it up. We got numbers in the box. That's okay. Let's run inside, stuff like that. So I think that helped my decision making, is be able to put myself in good situations, as well as just allowing him to put me in good situations, which is something I think Coach Day has made C.J. Stroud. I think that C.J.'s trust Coach Day with that, and I think that I've been able to trust Coach Rayburn with that as well.
Yeah, because Coach Day's done phenomenal. Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud, they've just continued to reload at quarterback. And I know Stroud was in the same, Fields was in the same recruiting class as Lawrence, but Georgia didn't play him, so he transferred to Ohio State after you left to Bryant.
Overlapped for 3 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
He was part of the reason why, we saw the writing on the wall, so all the quarterbacks kind of decided to transfer at that point in time.
Because Burrow, I think, wasn't that around the same point where Burrow opted to go to LSU? Or was that Haskins was on the team too at a point? Because I know they had a competition after Barrett left. Haskins won out.
Yes, and then Joe transferred. And then the competition was between me, Matt Baldwin, and Tate Martell.
Okay.
And then Justin transferred in.
Yeah. Okay. So that clears up my question. But as far as I noticed you've made a lot more deeper throws this year. Maybe I'm just watching the one game. Maybe I need to watch more tape. But I know against Cal PA, you did a lot of good medium deep throws where you were making the right decision. The ball came out quickly and you were able to move the chains. What type of offensive schemes have you ran in this career? But before that question, I'd like to ask, what do you think you've improved in the most this year heading into your draft year?
Just making sure that I'm not forcing it too much. I'm going through my reach, trusting my reach, and I'm allowing the guys around me to make plays. I'm not necessarily trying to third long, trying to get it all back and get on that plan. We need to do sticks and keep the drive going. I just think it comes with maturity, and I think that's something that I've done.
Yeah. Toughest Division II crowd you faced. I have a feeling you're going to say my alma mater, Slippery Rock, because their fans can get loud, energetic. They may not have the prospects they had for the NFL draft 5 years ago, but when Slippery Rock gets a 1 or 2 touchdown lead, their fans are energetic, loud, rowdy as F. They're one of Division II. I'm just curious, what was the loudest road environment you went to in Division II this year?
Slip was loud. It was a great one. Yeah, this Slip. They were loud. We did everything we could offensively against them. They had a high-powered offense this year, so it's one of those games. Was shootout, but they scored one or two more times. So, but it was a good. It was a fun atmosphere.
That's understandable. What other contests? I know you played IUP this year. That was one of the games you told me about earlier to check out. What game what do you think was your best individual game as a team this year as far as offensive execution goes.
Yeah, so we played. They were the number 8 team whenever we played them. Also, before going back, I think our stadium's a great stadium as well. Our fans get crazy too. They're loud. They're awesome.
I'm glad to hear that.
And that's not like a political answer. Like seriously, like they get crazy. And like all of our other sports come in like. So it's kind of like family atmosphere. Definitely. And then going back to yours, IUP. It was against them. We were going against Dwayne Brown. At a point, I think he had like 1,180 yards receiving. And then they were able to run the ball very well. And IUP is known to be like pretty good powerhouse. And then offensively, our O-line did an amazing job that game. I think I was only sacked 1 time, pressured like 4 times. I was like 28 for 31, so I was like really high completion percentage. And then like I scored 6 touchdowns that game. I had 4 passing, 2 rushing. And then our receivers caught the ball and made plays, and it just allowed me to look good. So I was thankful to be able to get the ball in the playmakers' hands, and then trust the O-line to be able to allow me to go back there and play the ball.
Yeah, the PSAC conference has a lot of schools. Cal PA posts a lot of their games on YouTube, which is where why I'm able to get some film cuts from that conference. You also have Clarion, Slippery Rock. I think there was I'm trying to think of the school. Off the top of my head, there's Gannon, your school, IUP. There was another school, I think it was Lindenwood, had a player in the NFL draft a few years ago. The Lindenwood Lions, I'm not sure if they're still in the PSAC, but they had a linebacker, I think, in the 2017 draft a few years ago. That was a day 3 pick. And I think Kutztown's in the PSAC as well. Andre Reed's old alma mater, famous Bills receiver.
Kutztown is.
Yeah. There's a lot of schools. I don't know if Shepherd is in that conference or if they're in the other division and you don't play them.
Shepherd's in our division. We did them last year. We couldn't stop their offense, but they also couldn't stop ours either. So it's a back and forth game all the way to the end.
Yeah. You did well in that game. I had 3 touchdowns, and I know Joey Fisher at left tackle and Tyson Badgett at quarterback are both draft eligible prospects in this class. So they're both talented players along with your. I think all 3 of you guys have a chance to get picked in this year's NFL draft. But what's the one thing you feel like you improved in the most outside of the arm talent making? Was it the accuracy, the just overall experience, more leadership? What do you feel like you've improved in the most this year? Footwork?
Footwork and like shortening up my stride and everything like that. Because that's something that I know like NFL teams said it was a little bit long, and that it was something I definitely need to work on. So that's something that I drilled and gotten better at it. Definitely this offseason, before the pro day and everything like that.
Yeah, and your pro day was at Duquesne University. Their football stadium and soccer stadium is on the same field. I know because I went to an Atlantic 10 soccer game, but that's not the point. The point is you were throwing on gridiron, and you had an 84-yard completion, and you stayed an extra 15 minutes after practice. I wish I could get more details from what Von Vogel reported about the pro day, but what was significant about it? What teams were there, and what stood out for your personal experience?
So first off, I want to thank Duquesne. They let me in, work out for them, and I thank Mike Butler for allowing me, from the start, getting me in there, because I wasn't able to get in any pro day. So when we first got there, everybody introduced themselves, obviously, and then we took the Wonderlic test, and that went very well. And then we tested everything, and then we went out and threw, and then so the throwing went good. I went through my script. I didn't miss it. I didn't miss a throw during my script, and then everybody excited the Zach throw the action and through the post for pretty far. After that, like, they asked me to stay, and it was a good workout. Worked out for 4 teams, and I've been in touch with them since my pro day. So it's just been a blessing to be able to be out there and throw with like Dwayne Brown and Dwayne Menders, Duquesne. Went out there and we lit it up. So that I wouldn't forget.
I've got 2 questions left for you, Kory. You studied molecular biology, and how did studying something so in-depth and detailed help you learn a playbook?
I had allowing me to be so detail-oriented, allowed me to see the little intricacies of the offense, especially because, like, I'm a football nerd, like, junkie. Like, I love film and watching football and seeing people do things and trying to learn them. So I think that has allowed me to an offense pretty easily. And, like, growing up, I used to draw my offensive plays. My dad had an offensive playbook. Coach Day's playbook was definitely in depth on his offense to Ohio State. And then all the experience from all the schools have allowed me to pick up the verbiage and everything like that. So I think that will help me pick up offensive playbooks in the NFL as well.
Excellent. Thank you. And last question, question about leadership. If you had the choice to lead either the Avengers or the X-Men, would you rather consider your leadership ability more like Iron Man and Tony Stark or Scott Summers as Cyclops?
Man.
You can throw the Justice League in there too, but Joey loves to end his interviews with superhero questions, and I agree with Joey that Marvel is better. But
I think Marvel's better as well. So I just don't like the arrogance of Stark, but I definitely like how he speaks to everybody. I'm more of like a quiet lead by example type of guy. I don't necessarily like to be vocal all the time, but I will step up and say something when I have to. So
that's kind of how Wolverine of the X-Men carries himself. He's always ready to kick butt, but at the same time, he doesn't say anything. He's the strong, silent type, very introverted, but he'll take care of business, and he's extremely competent.
Definitely.
Some people mistake that quietness as weakness, but, like, he knows what he's doing, and he's ruthless. When he whips out the claws, he's ruthless.
For sure. Yeah, that made me think a little bit. That caught me off guard.
That's how you want to be with the opposing secondaries. I mean, I don't really have any other questions for Kory, and I appreciate you coming on to chat with us on Twitter Spaces. You want to tell some other teams some cool, interesting stuff about yourself before we sign off?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. And I just want to let anybody know that's listening that somebody is a guy, and pretty much everybody gonna be able to uplift people on and off the field, and somebody that's not gonna do anything wrong. I'll make you right on the field as well.
Okay, appreciate it. I just wanted to see if any of our listeners had any last questions before we signed off. But Kory, it was a pleasure having you on. Good luck throughout the rest of the NFL draft process.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It was Gannon quarterback Kory Curtis. And we got the Twitter Space interview, the entirety of that interview up. I'll replay that entire interview once it's done and put that on Anchor as well. So if you just want to listen to the interview portion of the podcast, you can over on Twitter Spaces and Anchor. But I thought Kory did a tremendous job. Joe, what do you have to say before some of our listeners me on Twitter, recruiting coordinator at Florida Tech, Coach Curtis. He is also the dad to Kory, so he was on our
Very
call.
nice.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. No, Kory's making his dad proud, so that's cool.
Very much so.
What else is there to talk about today? I mean,
And
we've
you
already
can-
talked
you
about
can
the
also-
playoff scenarios, and we interviewed Kory Curry. The only news in the NFL this week was the Jeff.
Chris, you can bet that Kory's dad is going to dissect that interview, to help him improve on it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's another advantage, like you just mentioned. I mean, the dad, he can replay the interview on Twitter Spaces, and if there's something he needs to see Kory improve in, he can point that out and give him pointers as his son continues to go through the NFL draft process. And 84-yard pass was the longest pass of any quarterback at the pro day. I mean, Richardson and Levis had 70-yard throws at their pro day, but nobody else in this draft class came close to an 80-yard throw. I don't even think Mahomes and Allen threw it that far at their pro days. They probably could if they wanted to, but I don't think they did that at their pro days right out of college. But those quarterbacks were, Mahomes was special. Allen needed a few years to improve his accuracy, his footwork, his progressions. But he was able to improve his progressions by Wyoming's bowl game against Central Michigan when they had Bunting Murphy and Xavier Crawford on that Central Michigan cornerback room. So, and Kory was a fun interview. There's a lot of day 3 quarterbacks this year that look like they could be guys you add to your roster if you're looking for a backup or a third stringer or just a mature young man to quarterback group. You've got Stetson Bennett. You've got Hillers was MVP in 2 different bowl games. So we just had off. You this football unit. Got so many different players. I mean, Aaron Hall was able to make up to 5 progressions for B play. And that's the one thing Mike Tannenbaum raved about. Wire, another sport podcast I follow, had Mike Tannenbaum on their podcast this morning. So, I mean, and Spoon of Zeke was kind enough to send me the clip. We could play that clip on the podcast, but I'd rather listen to that after the show. I don't want to take credit for something that really wasn't mine. And, I mean, Tannenbaum said that Chase Brown improved his passing. I'm not sure how reputable his opinion NFL GM, so I guess people want to hear what he has to say. So it's going to be an interesting next 3 weeks. I've got the first round of my mock and the first round of Tony Mario's 7-round mock. I did in their entirety, pick by pick. Good stuff. But honestly, if you just want to talk about Simmons extension and call it a day, we can do that, because next week we're going to talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NBA playoffs, and then the week after that play Draft Monte, where we go through the first round and the picks are completely random based on 3 Card Monte. Like if you draw the lowest card, you get Anthony Richardson. If you drew the highest card, you get your pick between Stroud and Bryce Young. I mean, we could do that, but just one round, and that on top. Well, let's talk about the Simmons first, and then decide to try that. But I'm going to bring up the this is huge. Because Simmons deleted all his Titans on social media, and the Titans offered 4 years, 90 contract. One of the players off the round 2 of my 7-round mock draft is Pittsburgh's Kalijah Cansey. Might end up going in, for being honest. The film. I thought his rip move looked good, but he needed to improve his swim move. He actually has a nice swim move too. And he can play 7 technique, 9 technique, Pitt 43 defensive end as well as defensive tackle. He's 6'2", 280 last is 40 time. I mean, I think sneaking one. And I into round 1. The draft process is unfolded. Because the thing Cansey talked about really improving in Pittsburgh's pro day. And like Jervon Dexter continued to ace the draft, which I can't stress how huge is. All-star game to ace the draft process like that at your combine and your pro day much means guy, you're the man for your team. And his, because that is the big in the NFL this week, Joey.
Yeah, and okay.
The Things need to compete against the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars. Jeffrey Simmons on that defensive line. That's one guy they can't afford to lose, especially with Tanner Henry entering contract season and the type potentially go to rebuild in the future. So that's a guy they couldn't afford to lose. And now until 2027, when the new stadium opens, or no, 2026. So he would be under contract through the 2027-2028 season. So Jeff won't be Titans' new stadium opens because the 5th-year plan kicks in next season. So
Yeah, and let's face it, everybody was saying, that there have been a lot of overpaid contracts. I mean, 4 years, $94 million. I mean, that's a lot for someone not named Aaron Donald.
There have been 3 contracts handed out this year. One of them was hard 49ers. I forget the other guy contract this year. It was, I think it may have been, yeah, Hargrave and Jeffrey Simmons. All 3 of those guys made a minimum of 20, I think it's $20 million per year. Let me more here. 2.5 year. I think that is 22.5 million. So let's try 23.5 million. Yeah, 23.5 million per year for Simmons. That pay. So Jeffrey Simmons, 4-year, $94 million for tight, massive deal for interior defense line season. They send it defensive tackles that can affect quarterback. Or if you don't,
yeah, and it is hope, but like you said, with the situation with Henry, it's like, how much can the Titans afford to lose?
Yeah, and the Titans willing to pay $23.5 million to and that's the other thing. Quentin Williams hasn't been extended yet. Neither has Chris Jones, who enters 2023 in a contract year. I think those guys are going to get extended first. And there's a lot of now that both of those guys could make over $25 million a year. Now that they see Simmons got $3.5 million per year, they might be saying, you know what, honestly, 20 a year for 4 years. I could see the Jets the same thing with Quentin Williams. The question is, what's going to happen with the players? Because I have to think Jones is getting paid $24 million after seeing what Simmons got paid. I have to think Chris Jones is getting more than that. And I'll pull up Jeffrey Simmons' production here. He was the number 54 player on NFL's top 100. Jeffrey Simmons only had 7.5 sacks, but it was 39th in the NFL in sacks. Not overpaid, but I'm just curious what his Pro Football Focus grade was, because if you're a guy the Titans don't really have any players there that are primes. Henry's 28. He's in a contract year. Guy was good, competent, and he was a guy the Titans had to keep long-term to avoid a rebuild. And I think the Titans realized that, because let's face it, they would not have paid him as much if they didn't think they were potentially going to lose him. And the Titans probably saw what happened with A.J. Brown, and they were like, we can't let that happen with Simmons. So the new GM from the 49ers decides he's going to lock up Jeffrey Simmons. And Jeffrey Simmons was 10th out of 127 defensive linemen on Pro Football Focus. So he was in the top 10. So I guess you can justify paying him that much. Okay? I mean, I could see why Joey thinks they slightly overpaid him, but at the same time, he was a top 10 defensive lineman this year. So I guess you can justify paying him that much.
Yeah, it's tough because we've seen top, 10 to 15 defensive tackles sign over the last couple of years. And unless they're like top 3 or top 4, they don't get anywhere close to that. And I don't think Simmons is top 4. I can argue he's top 10. But so I do think it's a bit of an overpay. But at the same time, do the Titans really want to just get rid of everybody on their core and just completely scratch the entire project? I'm not sure. So, it may be justified due to how the team is looking right now.
Yeah. I want to do a game of NFL Draft 3 Card Monte. We'll be off the air by noon. We really don't have one round. Maybe 2. We could discuss some of the picks in the group mock as well, but let's just do 1 round. They're very simple. The rules are you get 3 cards. You pick a card on the left, the middle, or the right. You go to the left, middle, or right. You get 1 trade down, 1 pass, and there's 2 joker cards. If you draw a joker, you get to pick whatever player you want on the board, regardless of position of need. So I'm going to put 1 on the right and 1. So whatever card. If Joey gets the hot card, he gets there. Pick his quarterback. If he draws low, he gets Anthony Richardson. I get to pick for Carolina. Joey's going to be. That's how this is going to work for 3 Card Monte NFL Draft Edition. I know it sounds like a stupid idea, but you know what? We're just going to do the first. I set it to 2 rounds, but we'll do the first round for fun and see how we feel. All right? But we'll just do the first round and see how we feel as we wrap up the podcast here. Just a fun little activity to do. Go. Panthers are on the clock. Left, middle, or right? Pick a card.
I'm not sure. You're breaking up again.
I'm not trying to break up again. I'm multitasking here.
Of course, you're not trying
Left,
to.
middle, or right? Pick a card. Pick a direction here, and whatever card you pick, that's going to determine the quarterback the Panthers are going to get. We're going to do a mock draft that's completely random and completely up to chance. You also get 1 trade up and 1 trade down, and 1 pass where you can defer a pick to me.
Okay. 5.
So, middle?
I guess.
Okay, left, middle, or Joey drew the 6 of clubs. What was the king of clubs was the left card, and the ace of spades was the right card. That means the Carolina Panthers open up our mock draft with Anthony Richardson at number 1. Oh, yes. I love it. NFL draft kicks off with Anthony Richardson going to Carolina. Okay. What player are we? This or Will Richard third to the Texans Monte scenario at number 2? I say Will Anderson. He's the best overall player in the draft class. So I will pick the card on the right. And I drew the Queen of Hearts, which was the highest card, which means the Houston Texans get Bryce Young at number 2. So the Cardinals are up now, and CJ out on the board at number 3. Are you going to use your trade up here, or are you going to do pick a defensive player for the Cardinals? Matt Miller reported that the Cardinals have narrowed it down to 5 players if they can't get a trade offer yesterday. And I'll reveal those second. Those players are Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Jalen Carter, Christian Gonzalez, and Devin Witherspoon. Those are the ones I've narrowed it down to at number 3, assuming nobody wants to pay a premium to move up to number 3. So what 3 players do you think we should pick for this scenario? I'm thinking Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Christian Gonzalez. Those are the 3 the Cardinals are most likely to draft. I don't see the Cardinals picking Jalen Carter at 3 character issues. And while I like Devin Witherspoon, he didn't work out until after Illinois' pro day. Or you can use your 1 trade down here, or you can use a trade up where another team moves up to number 3 for CJ Stroud. Because this is definitely an interesting scenario here with Richardson going 1 and Bryce Young going 2. Stroud being on the board at number 3. It's not something I anticipated. I don't think it'll happen in real life, but it happened in our game of NFL Draft 3 Card Monte. So I want to know what you're thinking here with the Cardinals at 3. You want to trade down, have another team move up, or do you want to have the Cardinals just draft the best defensive player on the board? What are you thinking, Joey?
Draft the best player available. Cardinals just need talent.
All right. So the Cardinals are not trading out, so we're going to leave this to chance here. And we'll find out if the Cardinals get Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson or Christian Gonzalez. Pick a card, left, middle, or right. Doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong answers. This is just an exercise for fun. And the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Left? All right. I heard you say left.
Jack. Jack,
You
left,
drew the
right.
Jack of clubs. The other cards were 6 and 5. You drew the Jack of clubs, which means you get to pick best defensive player on the board. Your choices are, you can pick any of those 5 players Matt Miller mentioned. Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, Will Anderson Jr., Christian Gonzalez, or Devin Witherspoon. Those are the 5 Matt Miller reported. The Cardinals narrowed it down to at 3, assuming they can't find a trade partner. So which of those 5 players do you want to put on Arizona?
I would
I
say
think Gonzalez, Wilson, and most realistic choices. That's just my opinion. Because Walter Cherepitsky and Benjamin Albright both reporting that the Cardinals want to move down for Wilson or Gonzalez, but stay in the top 10. And when both of them are reporting information, that's enough for Jason Bannell to make an educated guess that the Cardinals are going to trade out of that spot. So you chose not to trade out. So those, you get your, I'm guessing you want Anderson here, but I can't say for certain.
I would take Anderson in that situation.
All right, so the Cardinals pick Will Anderson. The Colts sent all of their coaches to Kentucky for a top 3rd visit with Will Levis. So the Colts will be picking a pick 4 here. If I write this card, it is Stroud. If Joey gets to choose whether the Colts end up with Will Levis, or if I draw the middle card, the Colts get Levis. If I draw the lowest card, the Colts take Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker at number 4 in a surprising plot twist. All right, let's find out which the Colts draft their first Tennessee quarterback since Peyton Manning at number 4. I think the Colts are locked in on a quarterback at 4, so we'll find out who's coming off the board in NFL Draft 3 Card Monte here. I'm going to pick the card on the left. I drew the 8 of diamonds. The middle card was a joker, which means I could have picked whoever. But the 8 is higher than 6. Card's a 6. And joker only counts if you draw, like the joker does not count as a face card, it's higher than an 8. So technically the Colts if you so we're to make this realistic. So we get to Seattle at number 5. Joey's up and got to pick 3 players here to pick. I'm going to pick Jalen Carter, Wilson, because those 2 I'm torn on, 5 and 6. And the 3rd player I will pick is Will Levis. If Joey draws the lowest card, it means Levis is heading to Seattle. Or you can put Johnson Jr., not necessarily a fit. I don't think it's a fit. So if Joey draws the lowest card here, Hawks end up with Will Levis at 5. If he draws the highest, it's his pick between Carter and Wilson. If he draws the middle card, I pick between Carter and Wilson at 5. Here we go.
8.
Left, middle, or right? Pick a card. We'll see.
Okay, let's go middle.
What happens? Joey draws the 6 of spades. The Jack of clubs was the left card. The 5 of hearts was the right card. I think Tyree Wilson is a better, more mature player, but Tyree Wilson's been dealing with injuries. Hasn't worked out yet at the combine or his pro day. And Jalen Carter, gave their backup nose tackle a 2-year extension. They let Al Woods walk, but they signed Draymond Jones and Jerron Reed to play at 5 technique. So I got Jalen Carter to Seattle at 5 for that reason, despite the maturity issues. Because They tackle walk, but they re-sign the backup. And if Jalen Carter's out of shape, you can rotate him with the backup nose tackle that first year. And as Carter improves, you can give him more responsibility as the starter. With veterans like Draymond Jones and Dron Reed complimenting him, I think Jalen Carter's in a pretty good situation. He can thrive right out of the gate in Seattle. So that's why I went Jalen Carter at 5. Tony Mario mocked Miles Murphy at 5, by the way. So could have thrown him in as that third candidate as well. But it is the Detroit Lions at number 6. All right. Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, and I'm going to let Joey pick the third player because I think Lions on a number of different directions here. Honestly, I mocked Devin Witherspoon to the Lions at 6. Was winning at the combine and the pick. Put both of those corners in. Should we put Tyree Winner, put Bijan Robinson? Who do you think we should put in to Detroit as that third player? Could put Levis in. I'm going to let Joey pick the third player we in this conversation.
Let's throw Robinson in.
All right, so we got the 2 corners in Bijan Robinson. If I draw this card, Bijan, this card I get to pick player. Joey picks the player, and if I draw the lowest card, Bijan Robinson. Who do you like more at 6? I think Gonzalez is a little bit more distant, but I think Bijan Robinson of being that third player if Witherspoon and Gonzalez are off the board. We'll shuffle the card here and pull up. Left, middle, right. I'm going to pick the right card. I drew the Jack of Hearts. Other cards were a 2 and 10, so I get to pick my guy here, and Devin Witherspoon, who I have at number 6, is coming off the board right here. The Raiders are up. Christian Gonzalez and Will Levis are the top 2 available. I have Will Levis going to the Raiders, and I think Tony Mario mocked Jalen Carter, but he's gone. Jason Bannell has Tyree Wilson going to Raiders, so we'll go with Levis, Gonzalez, and Wilson here. Will Levis, Hendon Hooker at a top 30 visit with the Raiders too, but I don't think the Raiders would pick Hendon Hooker at 7. I don't think they'll draft Tyree Wilson either because they can't cut Chandler Jones without taking a cap hit. So really, Paris Johnson Jr., Christian Gonzalez, and Will Levis are the most likely options. So if Joey draws the highest card, he gets to pick between those 3. If he draws the medium card, I get to make the pick. And if he draws the lowest card, I am mocking Will Levis the Raiders in my real-life mock draft. And I know Oren hates the idea, but I ultimately think Ziegler and McDaniels are just going to do what they did when the Patriots took Mac Jones, because they were in that war room with Belichick and Dave Groh at the time. So they've been part of that process where the last quarterback. But I'm not going to mock Levis in this mock. So as long as the Joey Boyd's drawing the lowest card, we will be compassionate to Raider fans this week. 2 weeks from now, I can't say the same thing, but this week we'll be compassionate to Raider. Done shuffling, cut the deck, left, middle, or right. Favorite Raider Nation lies in your hands.
Let's choose the compassionate card.
Passionate card. I think the right's the passionate card. But it also, the left edge of the right card. Okay, the middle card is the middle card is in the best condition. The other 2 cards look like they're slightly bent. The middle card is in the best condition. And since Joey said passionate card, that means we're going middle. And Joey just drew the Queen of Hearts. There is not a card in the deck of cards that is more passionate than the Queen of Hearts. The Queen of Hearts might not be the Ace of Spades or King, but it's probably the most passionate card in the entire deck of 52 cards. The other two cards are the two jokers. Wow. So the two jokers that we put in the deck were both the other cards. So Joey gets to pick whoever he wants because the Joker rule only applies if you draw the Joker, since it's not an actual card. So, congratulations. Most insane probability both Jokers end up being the cards you don't draw, and the Queen card, the card you draw. So you get to pick whoever. Will let Christian Gonzalez and Paris Johnson Jr. at number 7. You can insert that and make your at 7. But yeah. Will Levis. I mean, Gonzalez, the Raiders don't one corner. I could see why Oren wants Christian Gonzalez. I think that is the best pick for the Raiders to make here. It's good when he played, but you could argue Paris Johnson's an upgrade over him. I'm thinking 7. I mocked Gonzalez to Atlanta at 8, but that's because I don't trust Ziegler. But I don't like Will Levis as a prospect, and I know you're not going to pick Will Levis here in this mock. So do you want Gonzalez, or is there another player you might prefer? I mean, the best available player is Tyree Wilson, but Chandler Jones is under contract. You can't cut him without taking a cap hit.
Yeah, I think Gonzalez is the best pick in this situation, just from what you mentioned there, cap hit. And that'd be difficult to justify.
Okay, so the Atlanta Falcons are on the clock here. This is a tough situation for Atlanta now because Atlanta, I mocked Gonzalez at 8. We could put a third corner like Keely Ringo in this conversation, but I don't think the Falcons are going to pick Keely Ringo at 8. But we could put him in. The Falcons gave Caleb McGarry a 3-year extension. They extended all 4 of their edge rushers. So Tony Mario mocked Will Levis to Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta's picking Levis. The fact that Arthur Blank came, Ritter's our guy, as good as Lamar Jackson is, we're sticking with Desmond Ritter. The fact that Arthur Smith and Arthur Blank both came out and said that tells me they're not picking Levis. So Bijan Robinson, a guy Christian Williams has been mocked to Atlanta. He will be one of the nominees for the number 8 pick. In the group mock, Emmanuel Lott, Paris Johnson Jr. And we'll pick a receiver, and we'll pick Keely. So we'll have Keely. We'll let Joey pick the receiver we put in this conversation at 8. I have Johnston as my number 1 wide receiver, but the number 1 wide receiver on PFN's board is Jackson Smith-Njigba. I'll let Joey pick the receiver. And then, so, yeah.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with some of these receivers, basically because I don't think they're as far apart as what some people do. So, give me a second here. I'm going to go ahead, and the first wide receiver I believe I took in the mock draft that I did was, well, the first wide receiver that was taken was Quentin Johnson, so let's just go with that.
Quentin Johnson, Ringo, and Bijan Robinson. Highest card I get to pick of those 3. Lowest means Atlanta takes most of them. Bijan is the third of those 3. And right now, Keely Ringo edges out Quentin. So if I found Johnson, if I call the go left card in the middle, I end up with there's a king diamonds. So what do we do in this? It's a tie. Does that mean I have to do a redraw? There's 2 kings. That means and this hand's ended in a tie. So what do we do in this scenario? Do we do a redraw where Joey draws? Yeah, and this will be Joey's happens. Or we could make the pick too. I mean, since it's a tie, I don't know how it works. We never really create a tie. But I've shuffled the deck. Pick a card. Since tie, freaking Falcons going from 28-3 leads to Desmond Ritter to now ruining 3 Card Monte with a redraw. Because there were 2 kings on the board, and the 2 kings were the highest cards. So go ahead, pick a card, left, middle, or right.
Left.
Or we could just give the Falcons Bijan Robinson because he's the highest player on the board. Bijan Robinson's number 11. Ringo is 23 on PFN's board, and Quentin Johnston's 24. We could just give the Falcons Bijan Robinson since it ended in a tie, and we both probably think he's the pick in this scenario. But, you know, because I remember Scott Scar from the Walter Football Forums. Scott Karazak said that it's going to be either Christian Gonzalez, Nolan Smith, or Bijan at 8. We'll go with Bijan just to speed up the process. But pick a card between left, middle, or right for Chicago because they're up at 9. Your nominees are going to be Tyree Wilson, Paris Johnson Jr., and Miles Murphy. So those are going to be your nominees for Chicago at number 9 here.
Let's go left.
You drew the Joker. That means you get to pick whatever player you want. The Joker's the highest card in the game. 2 is the card on the right. So or a 2. So you get to pick whatever player you want, even if it's not part of the suggestion. So if you like Lucas Van Ness more than really,
I chose Paris.
Shit up.
Let's go Paris Johnson Jr.
Left tackle. Paris Johnson Jr. is the Chicago Bears right tackle. Wow. So Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy, and Lucas Van Ness have all made it to number 10. Eagles are going to get a defensive end here at number 10 to groom behind Brandon Graham. Just it comes down to which defensive end they get. I like Miles Murphy a little bit more than Tyree Wilson. So if Miles Murphy is the high card, I'm going to pick him. If I get the highest card, if I get the middle card, Joey will pick Tyree Wilson, go for value. And if I draw the lowest card, Lucas Van Ness becomes an Eagle. Here we go. And I'm going to pick the card in the middle. I got the 8 of hearts. Oh, I got the lowest card. Lucas Van Ness is an Eagle. And Tyree Wilson and Miles Murphy have both dropped out of the top 10, Joey. How do you feel about this top 10 so far? The Panthers took Anthony Richardson at 1. The Texans took Bryce Young at 2. The Cardinals, Will Anderson at 3. C.J. Stroud and the Colts at 4. Jalen Carter at 5. Christian Gonzalez come off the board at 6 and 7. Falcons can't get their corner, so they settle for Paris Johnson Jr. goes to the Bears as they next to Brack. Brian Miller regressed over the blind drop off the offensive line where he'll learn under Brandon Graham for a year before taking over Nashville. How do you feel about that top 10 so far? Let's stop before we get to 11 through 20.
It's an interesting top 10. I'll give it that.
And if the Panthers give up all that for number 1, take Richardson, that is going to cause some drama. Because if they hit on Richardson, they look like geniuses. And if they don't, and Richardson, the Panthers, they want that. But it didn't play. So, number 11, we've got Peter Skoronski, Broderick Jones, and the number 3 player, we'll put Will Levis, because Darnell, I think he projects as more of a right tackle left. Number 11 here, if you draw the lowest card as a Titan, if you draw the highest card, you get to pick between Broderick Jones and Peter Skoronski at here we go. Are the Titans going to get a quality block for, or are they going to be the first team in this draft? Left, middle, or right? Pick a card.
Let's go with the right one.
And Joey drew the Queen of Diamonds, but the left card is the King, which means I get to make the pick. And I think I like Skorotsky the best. I think Skorotsky's the best pass blocking tackle. But I'm going to give the Titans Broderick Jones because the Titans need a good run blocking tackle. And Skorotsky, he hugs defenders when run blocking. That is an issue for me. And I think Broderick Jones is a better scheme fit than Skorotsky. So I'm giving the Titans Broderick Jones. Despite the fact that Skorotsky's the best pass blocker, I think the Titans need a tackle that's proficient in both pass blocking and run blocking with Derrick Henry in their backfield. So that's why I decided to mix things up and pick Broderick Jones. I think Skorotsky's a great fit for the Jets or Patriots. But a team like the Titans that runs the ball a lot and a team like the Bears that's run heavy, Harris, Johnson, and Jones are better scheme fits for those teams, in my opinion. What do you think before we get to Houston at number 12? Thoughts on that?
It's a nice pick.
All right. Number 12. So we'll include the 3 wide receivers. Wide receiver 1's coming off the board here. My top 3 receivers are Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison. We will put those guys in the top 3 unless Joey wants to pick a different receiver and replace it with that group. But either way, the Titans are going to get the first receiver at number 12 here. And we'll go with those 3. Drawing and which means pick the one number becomes a Texan. End up with and Bryce Young. The Jets are up. And let's pick 3 players for the Jets. The player I mocked to the Jets at number 13 was Brian Brees. The player Lisa mocked to the Jets was Peter Skorotsky, the Northwestern tackle. And I don't honestly know who the third player we should place here is. Either Will Levis, Miles Murphy. And the Jets currently and Jermaine Johnson under contract. So it's not like they need another defensive end. I'm just and they signed McCole Hardman and Alan Lazard. They still have Corey Davis on the roster. So, but Corey Davis is a player that's being reportedly sent to Green Bay. I don't know who that third player should be, who we should pick. I think Skorotsky and Brees are good choices, but I'll let you pick between Tyree Wilson and Will Levis here at 13 because Aaron Rodgers' trade hasn't been completed yet. But I understand the value with Will Levis still being on the board.
I would go Tyree Wilson because, let's face it, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, you still have the guy he drafted last year, and
all right,
second year, it could be better or worse.
Tyree Wilson's the lowest card here. If Joey draws the highest card, he gets his pick between Tyree Wilson, Brian Brees, and Peter Skorotsky. If he draws the middle card, I get to pick. And we'll go Tyree. We'll go Tyree Wilson because I think Skorotsky and Brees are better fits. Jets only have 1 starting defensive tackle under contract. That's Quentin Williams. That's one of the reasons I mocked Bressie to the Jets at 13. So here we go. Left, middle, or right, Jets. Left, middle, or right for the Jets.
Go left.
9 of clubs. The other cards were the 4 and 6. So you drew the highest card despite being a 9. So you get to pick between those 3. You got Peter Skorotsky, the player Lisa's mocked the Jets twice. You could screw my Patriots out on left tackle. You can get Brian Bressie, the player I mocked the Jets, or Tyree Wilson, best player on the board. What do you want to do here at 13? You've got the pick.
I would, in between those three, I'd probably go Skorowski because the Jets do need offensive line help.
And just like that, my Patriots are screwed out of the left tackle. Okay, Flowers will probably be my choice in this scenario here if I draw the highest card. I'm going to let Joey pick a player, and the third player will be Will Levis, because there are rumors of the Patriots trying to ship Mac Jones. So as a Patriots fan, if I draw this card, my team gets punished, which is an awesome plot twist. As much as I love the Patriots, you have to admit that is an awesome plot twist. So Joey Jr. went to my old high school, so we'll put him in this conversation as well. And or what do you think? Who player besides Zay Flowers do you nominate for the Patriots at 14 here? And they really don't need edge rusher. I mean, we theoretically give the Patriots Joey Porter Jr. Could go Brian Branch, but they re-signed Jabril Peppers. I don't think they would pick Branch here. So, I mean, either Addison or Joey Porter Jr. I think that Joey's going to pick one of those two. Because the Patriots will draft Will Levis after 1 bad year with Jones. I mean, I don't see them picking Levis. If one of the other quarterbacks was there, but I'm the Patriots taking Levis. So, who do you want for the Patriots, Joey? Because I think outside of Zay Flowers.
Yeah. Why would they take Levis when they have Bailey Zappi?
Another great point, because Mike Florio mentioned that the Patriots have been trying to trade Mac Jones. Some of these reports are false. New England insider like Evan Lazar or something. I don't know if it was Florio, whoever it was, but I agree. But you know what? We'll just put Flowers, Addison, and Joey Porter Jr. in this unless you want to pick a different player. Because I just look at receiver thinking with all three offensive tackles off the board, this pick is either a receiver or see Darnell Wright or Joey Porter Jr. I really don't see any other players that are applicable, Joey. I think Wes's two favorite players are Kino and Joey Porter Jr. He's a Patriots fan. So honestly, what do you think? He likes Ring more than Porter. So, I mean, I guess we can make Keely Ringo the nominees. West a Patriots fan, but who would you pick? So, Zay Flowers, Keely Ringo. You get to pick between Addison, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Joey Porter Jr. And Brian Branch. So those four, who do you think is the best fit for the Patriots?
History shows they would probably do Ringo.
Well, Ringo's Wes's pick. So you pick Ringo or Zay Flowers. Both locked in as nominees. So Joey Porter, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jalen Hyde, Brian Branch. Those five, who do you think is the best fit of those five? Because I think we can agree Ringo and Flowers are two best fit at this spot. But who is that third guy?
The best third guy? What do you mean the best third guy?
We need a third guy in order to call the pace. Even is their indecisiveness, so I guess we'll pick Brian Branch.
Okay.
As the third nominee, unless you want to pick someone. Joey Porter Jr. went to my old school. So I guess he could be the third nominee, so it'll be
Porter Jr., I think, the one I'm off to him.
No,
let's go Porter Jr.
So it's Zay Flowers or Porter. If I draw the highest card, I get to pick my player, Zay Flowers. If I draw the middle card, Joey's going to pick Keely Ringo. And if I draw the lowest card, it's Joey Porter Jr. All right, let's find out what New England's fate is here. I'm going to pick the card on the left, and it's the Joker. That means I get to pick whatever. And why the Joker? I put the Joker in separate parts of the deck. I even cut the deck, and the two Jokers still appear. This is the third time that's happened. I must be terrible at cutting the deck here. So I'm going to pick Zay Flowers to New England at 14. Zay Flowers is an intellectual type. I love his route running, his decisiveness. So Zay Flowers is a Patriot. I just think he is extremely disciplined and Patriot to go for those intellectual types. So, and Zay Flowers isn't just an intellectual type. 13 brothers, ridiculous work ethic, and you pair him with Juju Smith-Schuster. He's the one guy in this draft class that can challenge Juju Smith-Schuster. Okay, my nominee is Brian Branch. We'll Brian Branch, Michael Mayer. I will let Joey a receiver here because I know Joey's got receivers to Green Bay. So you get to pick between Addison, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jalen Hyatt as that third nominee for Green Bay. Or if you want to go Big Fargo mock Jackson Smith-Njigba in our last group mock, and the Bears took 9 in this one. So you want to make him the third nominee, or do you want to make Addison or because Lisa's favorite?
Let's go with Jackson.
Addison, that's my favorite as well. So Smith-Njigba, Addison, those 3 nominees for Green Bay, because I know you've been a big proponent of mocking a receiver to Green Bay at 15.
Yeah, I would go with Smith-Njigba.
Our nominees are Brian Branch, Michael Mayer, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. If he draws the highest card, he gets to pick between those 3. If he draws the medium card, I pick. And if he draws the low card, the least favorite of those 3 goes to Green. So those 3, Brian Branch, Michael Mayer, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is your least favorite? If Green Bay, if you draw a middle card, I'm picking Branch. So I'm guessing you would prefer Mayer, Smith-Njigba at that spot.
My favorite in that spot would be Jackson Njigba.
Okay. So if you draw the lowest card, Michael Mayer is a Packer. All right, let's get ready to do this. Shuffle the cards right. Left, middle, or right? Pick a direction.
Middle.
Joey drew the Joker. And at least we avoided the Joker. That's the first time the Joker's been in play back-to-back. But at least we avoided 2 Jokers. So Joey gets to pick, and he's choosing Jackson Smith-Njigba. So 3 receivers off the board in the top 15, Joey, just like last year when the receivers came flying off the board early. We got a very similar scenario here. So, okay, Washington Commanders at number 16. The Commanders really do need secondary help. They do need a number 1 corner. We're going to put Keely Ringo, Joey Porter Jr., and we're going to put, just for the hell of it, we'll put a defensive end in. Montez Sweat hasn't been extended. I'm not sure the Commanders are going to use that 5th-year tender on Chase Young or Chase Young, because there's reports the Commanders might not place the 5th-year tender on Chase Young. And Tyree Wilson and Miles Murphy, 2 guys projected in the top 10 are freaking slipping, man. I mean, we might actually have to mock one of these guys to the Lions at 18 simply because of the value they're getting. I mean, just, sheesh. I mean, I feel bad for those 2. I mean, I honestly think we have to make one of them the nominee. As much as I like Brian Branch, pairing him with Derek Forrest, as much as I like that idea, Wilson and Murphy have both slipped far to the point where one of them needs to be the nominee at 16. Don't you agree? One of those 2 needs to be the nominee at 16, simply from a value standpoint. in case the Commanders can't extend both Sweat and Chase Young, which is a possibility when you think about it, because Sweat's entering the final year of his rookie deal. Chase Young is going to be entering the final year of his rookie deal unless he gets a fifth-year tender. So when you really think about it, Commanders are going to lose one of those two if they can't, after giving Daron Payne a 5-year extension. After they've extended Allen and Daron Payne already. So they're probably going to lose one of those two edge rushers. That's why I think we need to nominate one of them. Don't you agree for the Commanders at 16? I think we nominate the corners, but we get between Brian Branch or one of the edge rushers because I think Wilson and Murphy are both better scheme fits for 43 defense. And they're both still on the board at 16 because of this 3 Card Monte rule. You could pick between Wilson, Murphy, or Brian Branch here at number 16, Commanders.
Wilson, Murphy, or Brian Branch. Let's go with.
You could also nominate Will Levis if you get Commanders in quarterback, but they have Brissett and Sam Howell in that room.
Yeah.
Sam Howell's the starter. They prefer Sam Howell over Lamar Jackson. So I don't think quarterbacks can play for the Commanders here.
I would go with Murphy simply because best player available.
Yeah. So Joey's going to go Miles Murphy. Tyree Wilson was the nominee, but was a nominee earlier in the draft at number 10. He was also a nominee at 9. And he was a nominee at 13. But Joey's switching things up. He's made Murphy the nominee here. So the lowest card is Miles Murphy. Highest card, I get to pick the corner. I mocked Ringo to the Commanders at 16. Middle card will be Joey Porter Jr. Middle card will actually be Joey's pick between Joey Porter Jr. and Miles Murphy. I'm guessing Joey would pick Joey Porter Jr. in that scenario, but I'm going to draw the card on the right. I got the King of Hearts. I picked the highest card. Keely Ringo is a Commander. So Keely comes off the board here. And Steelers, they don't get a left tackle at 17. That means Joey Porter Jr., and we get to pick their nominees for the Steelers at 17. I've heard Mozzie Smith has had multiple interviews with the Steelers to the point where Tony Pauline of the Pro Football Network is saying that if Brian Bresee and Mozzie Smith are both there at 17, Steelers might go Mozzie over Bresee because Tomlin interviewed Mozzie multiple times. So Joey Porter Jr. 17. Gordon Addison was Kenny Pickett's teammate at Pittsburgh. And then you've got, so we can go defense. Brian Branch is also still available if you want to replace Terrell Edmonds. So there are a lot of possibilities, but I think Joey Porter Jr., we both agree, should be the first nominee. That's the probably that we would both pick in this scenario at 17. And then we'll each pick a player. The player I'm going for Pittsburgh at this point is Bresee, nose tackle Clemson. He's the highest player on board of those 3. So I'll pick him just for the hell of it. And Joey can choose between Mozzie Smith, Brian Branch, and Jordan Addison here. Well, you also have Jervon Dexter and Mozzie and Kalijah Cansey as nominees as well, if you want to throw them into the mix. So between those 5, who you want to pick as that third nominee? You could go Anton Harrison or Cody Mock, too. The left tackle, Joe Thomas endorsed. Darnell Wright, the Tennessee offensive tackle, can also nominate him. He played both offensive tackle positions, but he switched over from left to right tackle this year. I think he's a better fit for a right tackle team. But, we'll see. What do you think?
You pick the third guy.
All right, just for the hell of it, I will pick, since Joey is deferred, I will pick Brian Branch. Sorry, Kenny Pickett, we're not writing you with Addison. You've already got a lot of good receivers. You've got Deontay Johnson. You've got George Pickens. And you're going to have Calvin Austin III coming back from an injury. So for that reason, I'm not going to pick receiver at 17. If Branch was gone, I would have gone with Addison. Joey Porter Jr. will be the highest card. Middle card will be Joey's pick between Bresee and Branch. and lowest card will be Branch. So that is how we'll do. Joey, I'm guessing Joey prefers Branch over Bressie at 17, but he's not. I don't think he would take either guy at 17 personally. But Joey gets to pick between Bressie and Branch. The middle card and lowest card will be the player Joey and I dislike the least of those three. So Bressie or Branch, who do you like more between those two at 17 if Joey Porter Jr. is not the
I'll take one. It's like you gotta, best player out there.
So we both want Joey Porter Jr. So as long as this doesn't land on the lowest card, it's going to be Joey Porter Jr. I'm going to pick the 8. I ended up with the lowest card. So that means Steelers don't get Joey Porter Jr. Okay. I guess that means we're giving Brian Branch. Now, so we'll give this Branch because Bressie is high on for and my Branch. So we'll give the Steelers Branch here to mix things up. So Brian Branch, the Alabama safety, heads to Pittsburgh, where he will be playing with. Hey, the Lion, number 18. We'll make this interesting. Lions have a lot of edge rushers, though. James Houston, 4th, had 8 sacks as a 6th pick. We have Jal. We'll make this interesting. We'll have Wilson or Murphy as nominees, and then I will let Joey pick between Michael Mayer and Jahmyr Gibbs at 18 as that offensive player. Because Wilson and Murphy both need to come off the board by now. Brian Bressie, we could also go Brian Bressie because the Lions do need defensive tackle help. So maybe we'll just go defense here for Detroit at 18 because of how the board's played out. How do you feel about that? Just best defensive player, because those two edges have been on the board way too long. And Bressie, I would probably pick Bressie here from a value standpoint, but Bressie would be my pick between those two. But Wilson and Murphy need to come off the board by now. It's pick 18. They're both still on the board. This mock is starting to look a little unrealistic at this point. So to make things more realistic, we will have Wilson and Murphy. Wilson or Murphy, who do you like more between those two at 18 for Detroit? You've endorsed both guys. So, and I'm guessing you would not pick Brian Bressie at 18 here.
Well, I like Bressie. I like Bressie a lot, but he's not,
Well, the top 3 players on PFN's board are Tyree Wilson, Will Levis, and Miles. We could just go with those 3 and the rest of it. So
I'll go ahead.
Those 3.
Yeah, I'll go with Wilson.
All right, so high card means Bressie. Medium card means Tyree Wilson's a Lion. And lowest cards, Miles Murphy or Lion. If it's a 2, Miles Murphy. But if I draw a 2 here, it'll be under. That's my punishment for drawing a 2. I think that's fair. If I draw the lowest card in the entire deck, the Lions have to Levis and Goff. I don't think Levis will be the pick here, but I drew the King of Hearts, but the Ace of Diamonds is in the middle. Joe gets to pick between Wilson and Murphy here, because Ace is the highest card on the board, so Joe gets to make the pick here at 18. What do you want to do? Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy, or Brian Bressie? You get your pick between those 3 at 18 for the Lions.
Okay, let's go Murphy.
You're going Miles Murphy here. I like him more as a pass rusher than Tyree Wilson, but I think Wilson's a better, but he shows more explosion off the edge. There's a reason why Tony mocked Murphy at 5. Do I think Seahawks will pick Murphy there? No, but Miles Murphy is the pick. Okay, Buccaneers are up. Got to pick 3 players. Tony Mario mocked all right to the Buccaneers as a right tackle, moving Wirfs over to left tackle. So Tony Mario's pick, Darnell Wright, will be the wild card here. Best player, I think Terry Wilson. I mean, the Buccaneers have Joe Tryon, Shaq Thompson. They don't really need that third outside linebacker for depth. As much as I like Tyree Wilson, I don't think he's a fit. The Buccaneers did lose their number 2 corner, Sean Brunting Murphy. They gave their nickel corner, Jamel Dean, a 3-year extension. So he's now the number 2 corner, and Zion McCollum is now the nickel corner. So if you don't like any of those corners, you can pick Joey Porter Jr. as your nominee here. Honestly, I have no idea what to do. I think Will Levis should be the lowest card. I'm not picking Will Levis, but just for entertainment purposes, I just don't know. We'll make Darnell Wright one of the nominees here because that's Tony Mario's favorite player. I'm just looking at the board here and thinking, okay, who's the best fit for Tampa? Because none of the players that I'm going to go with Osiris Torrance. Guy David Koning has mocked at Tampa twice. I think that's a really good fit for Tampa. And you improve your guard slot because you cut right guard Shaq Mason, who's now on the Texans. So I like Osiris Torrance a lot at this spot. So he will be my nominee. So Osiris Torrance and Darnell Wright are gone. Are you going to make Levis your nominee here just to make things interesting? Because we'll give him an opportunity to get picked. Or do you have a different direction you want to go in? Because
let's go with Brittany.
Tampa Bay is Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. They don't really have a third quarterback to push those two. So you want to make, we'll put Levis in as that third nominee just to make this interesting. So Joey's up. He draws the highest card. He gets picked between Darnell Wright and Osiris Torrance. And he draws the lowest card. He gets Will Levis. Here we go. The card, left, middle, or right?
Middle.
He drew the 7 of spades. The king of hearts is the left card. So that means Joey will not get to pick. That means it will be Osiris Torrance if I draw. And if Joey draws the lowest card, Will Levis is a Buccaneer. The right card is the 5. So the Buccaneers avoid Will Levis, and they're getting Osiris Torrance, guard, Florida. Right here with this early pick in round number 1. Okay. Seattle took Jalen Carter 5. So 2 nominees are going to be Tyree Wilson and Nolan Smith. I mocked Nolan Smith. Who should we add as that third player? Do you want to add Levis here, or do you want to pick a third nominee for this pick for Seattle at 20? You want to add Levis here, or do you want to go with a third player? And Nolan Smith are my 2 nominees. Who is your nominee for this selection here, number 20? I mean, you could a receiver or corner. Could go with a tight end, but they have Colby Parkinson, Noah Fant, and Will Dissly under contract. I don't think they would pick one, and I really don't see a third player. So, fuck it. Will Levis is the nominee here at number 20. If I draw the lowest card, Will Levis will be a Seahawk. Seahawks did take selfies with Will Levis at his pro day. So, I'm going to go right to 9. And that was the highest card. So I get to pick between Tyree Wilson and Nolan Smith. I like Nolan Smith a little bit more on film than Tyree Wilson. I knocked Nolan Smith to Seattle. So Nolan Smith is coming off the board right here at pick 20. For the Chargers, gosh, Tyree Wilson is dropping in this mock draft. It's actually kind of incredible when you think about it. So the Chargers at 21. Tyree Wilson will obviously be a nominee. I mocked Nolan Smith to the Chargers at 21, but I think he's better on film than Tyree Wilson. And I already picked Nolan Smith, so I can't go back and redo that. So Tyree Wilson will be the best player on the board. And then, because I think if Joey or I get this pick, we'll probably give the Chargers Tyree Wilson for depth behind Bosa and Khalil Mack. The Addison, at this point, is another good nominee. That's the player I'm going to pick. And who are you going to pick as the nominee here? With Wilson and Addison, you've got Brian Bressie. You've got Joey Porter Jr. You've got Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer, tight end. So Mayer, I'm thinking tight end, receiver, or Wilson will be the nominees. So Addison, Mayer, or Tyree Wilson will be the nominees here at 21. How does that sound? And of those three, how would you rank those three? Because I would probably...
So Addison first. I mean...
Yeah, I agree. At the highest... So if Joey draws the highest card, Addison comes off the board here. If he draws the medium card, I will take Tyree Wilson because he's been on the board way too long. And if we draw the lowest card, Joey will pick Michael Mayer. Here we go. Left, middle, or right?
Right.
Club, not the jack. So Michael Mayer is a Charger. So we got 10 picks left. The Ravens are on the clock. And the Ravens have, I think Tyree Wilson should be a nominee as the best player on the board, but the Ravens have, I'm going to pick Addison. Is Addison your nominee? Because if Addison's your nominee, I'll nominate Joey Porter Jr. And
yeah,
just
Addison's
because Joey's a
mine,
Browns fan, we'll make Will Levis the lowest. We'll make Will Levis the nominee because the Ravens haven't paid Lamar Jackson yet. So if I draw the lowest card, Will Levis is a Raven. I know as a Browns fan, you take great pleasure in making Ravens fans suffer. Or do you think there should be another nominee instead of Will Levis?
No, it
kind
of makes sense at this point. Yeah, it kind of makes sense at this point since I've heard some rumblings that Lamar may never play again for the Ravens. Makes sense just to be prepared.
But that's only if I draw the lowest card. I'm going to pick the card on the left, the upside down card. And I drew the Joker. The other cards were an ace and a 5. So my here, and I'm going to go with, this is tough because Joey Porter Jr. is such a, I'm going Joey Porter Jr. I'm going to piss off some Steeler fans. Because, Joey Porter was my old high school, North Allegheny. There is nothing that would piss off everyone at my high school more than Joey Porter Jr., a former North Allegheny football player, being a Baltimore Raven. There is nothing that would piss the Steelers off more than Joey Porter Jr. ending up on the Ravens. So, in a plot twist, I know Lamar needs weapons, but Mark Peters is a UFA. I don't trust either of the corners the Ravens took in last year's draft. And just to be a dick to Steeler fans, I'm giving the Ravens Porter Jr. How do you feel about, we never broke down 11 through 20, but recap here. We'll recap after we'll get through the wild card teams first, and then we'll recap 11 through 24. But, how do you feel about that pick? I drafted Joey. I gave the Ravens Joey Porter Jr. simply. I think it'd be hilarious if the Ravens drafted a player that went to my high school. I think that would be hilarious. Everybody in my old high school happy for Joey Porter Jr., but they'd be kind of pissed off that he's on the Ravens too. So there'd be a lot of mixed feelings. Which is mainly why I gave the Ravens Joey Porter Jr. at this point.
Yeah. I can see it.
All right. The Vikings are up. We have Jordan Addison as a replacement to Adam Thielen. Also have could go. Who do you want to nominate here besides Addison? We got to pick 2 more nominees. Could go Brian Bressie as a nose tackle, or we could It got Cam, the South corner. Vikings have Andrew Booth and
let's do
Byron Murphy.
Bressy.
So I think both are number one for the Vikings at this point. But Will Levis will be the lowest card. And who do you think who's that third player you'd like to add? Bressy or Tyree Wilson still on the board too? It's insane. And he's slipped this far.
Yeah, let's go Bressy and Wilson.
Just because you feel bad for the guy. Top 5 projection board at 23, and it's like he's dropping like Aaron Rodgers. This will not happen in real life, but it's Card Monte NFL Draft Edition. Ravens, card left, middle, or right?
Middle.
Middle, so you get to pick. I'm not sure how the two jokers ended up same row, but I'm separate. The pick between Tyree Wilson, Will Levis, and Jordan Addison of the Vikings at 23. I think we both like Adam with Adam Thielen gone, but you know. Here.
I'll go with Addison.
Yep. So Jaguars are up at 20. So we will make Cam Smith. The Jaguars really need a corner. So Cam Smith. I know Joey's favorite tight end in terms of value is will make. So Cam Smith will be my nominee. Dalton Kincaid will be Joey's nominee. Because Tony Mario did a mock draft, and he has Devin Witherspoon dropping to 24, and he has Kincaid going to Jacksonville in round 2. Joey would be happy just to get one of those players at 24, but to get both of those players in round 1 and 2 would be a dream come true for Joey. I will nominate Cam Smith, nominate Dalton Kincaid, and will be the third because even though Key's gone, the value of getting a top 5 player at 24 is massive. And if you use that situation with Josh and Kalavon Chasen, you can essentially choose to move on from Josh Allen at that point. If you don't want to pay Josh Allen and you draft Tyree Wilson, at that point you can move on from Josh Allen because you're getting a top 5 player at 24. I mean, the value is incredible at that point. So we'll go, but Cam Smith, Dalton Kincaid, Tyree Wilson. Of those 3, who would you pick? I'm guessing Kincaid. I'm guessing Kincaid's a little bit higher on your board than Cam Smith. My number 2 tight end is Darnell Washington out of Georgia, the guy Ken LeBlanc took. I'm okay with including him in this as well. But
yeah,
I'm guessing you're going to pick
Cam Smith. Well, I would go Cam Smith because the Jags do not need a tight end right now.
They don't. Cam Smith would be my number 1 choice as well. So, but the other 2 nominees will be Darnell Washington and Tyree Wilson. I've changed my mind from Kincaid to Washington Wilson. So let's see what I draw. I'm going to pick the middle. It's a 5. It's the lowest part of the. So that means Jaguars. Card, they would get Tyree Wilson. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The Jaguars take Tyree Wilson over a corner because he's a top 5 player on their board. And in a million years, they didn't dream of Wilson being available here, but here he is. And Tyree Wilson drops to Jacksonville. We're at pick 25 now. The Giants just gave Daniel Jones a 4-year extension. So Jalen Hyatt will add Jalen Hyatt first will be Gibbs, and the third nominee will be Trenton Simpson. And I'm guessing of those 3, you pick Hyatt. If Hyatt there, you'll get Gibbs. Could also include John Michael Schmitz. Brian Bayless mocked John Michael Schmitz, the Giants, because the Giants lost their starting center and their backup center. So down with Bantle, picked up 4th and 5th round pick in our group mock from Bantle. Bantle moves up for Bajan, and Brian Bayless gets his at 28 and some additional draft capital. Really like that trade for both teams. We will make John Michael Schmitz, the guy Brian in our group mock, the 3rd nominee. You get there, so I'm guessing you're going to pick Simpson over at this point because Barkley's still on the franchise tag, and I know you both, Trent, well, a big fan of his. You pick a tight end, but the Giants traded for Waller, so you could pick Cam Smith as your nominee too. I mean, the Giants do need corner help. I mean, it's a really big decision either way, you know? Who are you choosing as that 3rd nominee? Because who you want as that 3rd nominee? Hyatt
Let's go
and
tight end.
Tight end, Darnell Washington. Okay. So the Giants, they trade for Darren Waller. Joey's will be the option if he draws the lowest card. Okay. Card left, middle, or right?
Middle.
It's the King of Diamonds. There's no, so you get the highest your pick between Jalen Hyatt, John Michael Schmitz, the Minnesota center, and a tight end. You get your pick between those 3 players at 25. And the Giants have they have the Daniel Bellinger and Darren Waller as their tight ends. So I don't think they'll draft a tight end, but you get to pick whoever you want among those 3. I'm guessing Jalen Hyatt most sense for New York. You could draft a center. The Giants centers. You could draft a center. You don't have to draft John Michael Schmitz. You've got Tippmann, you've got Whitaker, you've got the Michigan center who won the Remington.
I'd go with Hyatt.
I mean, you could go in directions here. I'm guessing you went Hyatt.
Yes. I did go Hyatt.
Dallas. I mocked Jahmyr Gibbs here. Dallas only has 3 defensive tackles on their roster. Kerr gave them Mozzie Smith, Michigan. So, Joey, you get to pick a defensive tackle here. You can pick Bressie or Dexter because Gibbs is my nominee for Dallas. So, you get to pick between Bressie and Javon Dexter. So, if I don't draw the highest card, a defensive tackle not named Bressie, who's my consensus number 2 defensive tackle, comes off.
Yeah, I'd go with Bressie.
Pick. So here we go. If the lowest card comes up, Mozzie Smith comes off the board. If I draw the second highest card, it's Bressie. And if I draw the highest card, Jahmyr Gibbs, running back 2, comes off the board. Here we go. On the right. And Joe, the 2 and ace. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a Dallas Cowboy. Okay, so the Bills are up. Mark Bill in our group mock is a replacement to Spencer Brown. Thomas Coburn loved my decision to give the defense back. Javon Dexter at 20. So we're going to go Brian Bressie, Javon Dexter, and Darnell Wright. Could throw Trent Simpson in here because the Bills really do need a middle linebacker. So Simpson with one of those 3. Let me know.
Yeah. I'd put Tuatu in there.
I have Simpson great ahead of Tuatu because of this game speed, but okay. Make this interesting. We're Darnell Wright in there. We're keeping keep Brest there. Draw the highest card. Is better than you get to pick whoever. But Joey put there as a 3rd knob, so I'll respect his decision. And because Thomas Coburn on deck, we're going to make it interesting. It's either going to be Thomas Coburn or just interesting for shock value purposes. Can't have every pick in my mock draft be an option. A trade up or trade down option. So if you don't want to pick here, you could propose a trade up scenario where a team moves up for top point. We're at pick 27, and Will Levis is the top player on the board. So if you don't want to pick here, you have a trade up, a trade down, and a pass, and you have 3 picks left. So you could trade down. You could have another team move up. What would you like to do? Because if you don't want to pick here, you could.
Let's have another team
You could
move
mix
up
things up here.
because we haven't done it yet.
All right. Let's see. What team hasn't drafted a quarterback? That is what I'm going to look at here. Okay, so the Panthers, Texans, and Colts all went with quarterbacks as expected. The Raiders chose Christian Gonzalez. The Titans chose Broderick Jones. So, you know, who has the most draft capital at this point? The Colts. We're going to use the trade simulator here. The Colts are going to propose a trade. So we're going to do 3 Card Monte. Leave it to Chant. Well, the Colts already drafted. The Seahawks have 2 second-round picks. So if the Seahawks want Will Levis, they can move up for him here. So we will. The Jets also have 2 second-round picks, but I don't think they're going to move up for Levis. So we will make this interesting. So teams move up for Levis. I would say the Raiders have the most capital of those 3, followed by the Titans, followed by Seattle. So here we go. Left, middle, or right. We're going to determine which team trades up with Buffalo by chance. And if you don't want to make this draw, you can use your 1 pass and defer it to me, and I will make the draw. All right. I'll pick the card on the right if since Joey's offer gets declined, I will sorry, Ord, I hate to do this, but I think in real life, if it happens like this, the Raiders will move up. I'm going to offer 20, but since I'm a nice guy, I will not give the Bills 70 and 38. I will give them 38 and 100 for quarterback. See if the Bills actually lowball Brandon Beane. And he was like, fuck you, get that trash out of here. You want a quarterback, you're giving me 2 top 100 picks, motherfucker. That's what Brandon Beane had to say to Dave Ziegler. All right, Titans. Let's see if they can move up with Buffalo here. Titans will offer 41 and 72 for 27. Okay, the Seahawks. Okay, 27. Will you do 37 and 52? Yes. So the Bills and Seahawks make a trade, and Will Levis comes off the board here and is a Seahawk at 27. Okay. So Will Levis finally off the board with, thanks to Seattle, has their quarterback of the future in Will Levis. Okay, the Bengals are up. I'm gonna go with my nominee here. Honestly, with Gibbs off the board, there's not a first-round running back. But I think the tight ends, you could go Darnell Wright if you trade Jonah Williams on the board. But you could also go with Darnell Wright here, devil's advocate, or Musgrave. Do you want to pick one of those two as your tight end nominee with Mayer off the board? Do here be your nominee for the Bengals. So if I draw the middle card, and the worst tight end, Luke Musgrave, who has a second-round grade, will be the Bengals pick at 28 if I draw the lowest card. Or if you have Musgrave ahead of Kincaid, we'll give the Bengals Kincaid, because Bantle mocked Kincaid to the Bengals in the first group mock we did. All right, here we go. 28. I'm going to pick the card on the right, and I got the 4 of diamonds. I got the lowest card, so Joey, who's your least favorite tight end between Kincaid and Musgrave? Because that's who's going to the Bengals as tight end 2 here. Unless you've got a other suggestion you'd like to throw out.
I'd go with Kincaid because it would give him a second red zone option, big-bodied red zone option.
So you like Kincaid over Musgrave, and Washington. Kincaid's your tight end 2. My tight end 2 is Washington. So tight end 4, Luke Musgrave, is a Bengal at 28 because I drew the lowest card. Sorry, Bantle, we have to make this interesting. We can't just go with the consensus when we draw the lowest card. I hope you'll forgive me, Jason. I was also rumor about him being arrested, but I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not that cruel. I'm not that heartless, even though I can be a dick sometimes. So, Saints at 29 here. Your nominees are Brian Bressie, who Mitch Pabst took in the group mock. Lucas Van Ness, I'm guessing that's the player you're going to nominate. I mocked Lucas Van Ness to the Saints at 29, so he'll be my nominee. Bressie can be Bressie's the best player on the board. He can be your nominee. And who's that third nominee you want to include for New Orleans just for the hell of it? Simpson's still there. We could also go with Javon Dexter just to make things more interesting. So, because the Saints, you want to go with Dexter as that third nominee?
Either Simpson or Dexter.
Here, I mean, who are you thinking? I'm thinking Lucas Van Ness here.
Yeah.
So Simpson. So Van Ness. So Van Ness is my top player here. Saints took Bressie in the group mock. And I'm going to draw it. Right? You pick it. I need an answer, left, middle, or right. You said whatever works, but like you didn't pick a direction. Or maybe you did. I didn't hear you. That's all.
What'd you say? I'm breaking up.
I get to pick the player here.
Okay.
Here, Lucas Van Ness is the pick. I think that's the guy we both wanted to give the Saints anyway. So Lucas Van on the board. I think the Eagles took him at number 10. Yeah, they did. So Van Ness was Bressie. You would have wanted Trent Simpson, but since you drew the middle card, that means I get to make the pick, and Bressie comes off right here to make things interesting. Trade here. The best player on the board is Cam Smith, but that's not the player I'm going to have. I'm move up. I'm going to have the Texans make a trade with the Browns pick to Philadelphia to move up 3 spots. And the Eagles accepted. So the Texans are on the clock. And I'm going to give the Texans Tennessee right tackle Darnell Wright with that 3rd first-round pick. Chiefs don't get a right tackle after losing Andrew Wiley, and the Steelers do not get a first-round offensive tackle to start round 2. So the Texans move up for Darnell Wright and manage to screw both the Chiefs and Steelers in the process with a 3rd first-round selection. How do you feel about that plot twist, Joey? Because Titus Howard's in the final year of his rookie deal, and I think Darnell Wright's an upgrade over Titus Howard, if I'm being completely honest. So I wanted to make a trade for the hell of it, and that's the trade I made. As dumb as it sounds,
that'd be a hell of a haul for the Texans. Be a hell of a haul for the Texans.
So Bryce Young, Quentin Johnson, and Darnell Wright as a replacement to Titus Howard, who's in the final year of his rookie deal. I think even if Howard has a good year, I think the Texans let him walk, Joey, because they already gave Larry Tunsil a 3-year extension. I had a 5th-round grade on Titus Howard when the Texans took him in the 1st round. He's been serviceable after struggling as a rookie and dealing with injuries the last 2 years. He finally had a solid season, but I don't think he's done enough to get paid. And at the end of the day, it is a business decision, unfortunately. So if you have a 1st-round grade on Darnell Wright, Anton Harrison or Cody Mock, get your right tackle in the future. And maybe only move him if you can get another day 2 pick. If you can get another day 2 pick for Titus Howard, I would move him now while he still has some trade value left. As crazy as that sounds,
well, him
now while he still has some value.
I don't have a problem with that.
And see if you can get a 3rd or 4th round pick for Titus Howard. So that was the thought process. And now the Chiefs are up, and there is no 1st-round offensive tackle. I mocked Abe Wabore, the Northwestern defensive to Kansas City. That is going to be my nominee for 31. Best offensive tackle on the board is Cody Mock, the North Dakota State offensive that Joe Thomas rated out. Is that going to be your nominee?
Yeah, let's go with Joe. Yeah, Joe.
And the 3rd nominee, we have to pick a 3rd player. We can pick can either pick Anton Harrison, the Oklahoma offensive tackle, Trenton Simpson. I don't think the Chiefs need a linebacker. Or we can go Gervon Dexter. Dexter will be the 3rd nominee. So those will be the nominees for round 1. Gervon Dexter, Cody Mock, and Abe Wabore. Here we go. Joey's going to draw the final card of round 1.
Right.
Left, middle, or right?
Right.
Here we go. Right. It's the 6 of spades. So he drew the Jack was the highest card, which means I get to pick an Adotomia Aguabore, a Kansas City, Missouri native. His goal was to get picked in Kansas City in round 1. He gets picked by Kansas City as the crowd in Kansas City cheers for Brett Veach. They cheer for the Kansas City native. And Aguabore, who I had a 5th round grade on heading into the combine. He did enough at the combine to play by the Chiefs at 31 to end this thing. And we'll go through the picks, recap them one more time. Not sure how you're feeling. We could do round 2, but I'd rather just do round 1. But we'll recap this first round. Richardson and Young go 1 and 2. Stroud drops to the Colts at 4. Bijan Robinson goes to at 8 after Witherspoon and Gonzalez get picked. The Bears ignore their defensive line and try to bolster their offensive line with Paris Johnson Jr. Vance is an Eagle. Roderick Jones goes at 11. The Jets take Skaronski. The Patriots take Zay Flowers. 3 receivers in the top 15. Keely Ringo to the Commanders. Steelers get Brian Branch. Miles Murphy drops to Detroit. Osiris Torrance goes to the Buccaneers. The Seahawks take Nolan Smith at 20. Mayer, Joey Porter Jr. ends up on the Ravens. The Ravens need a corner just as much as they need a receiver. So I made that pick just to create shock value. Addison ends up on the Vikings. Tyree Wilson ends up in Jacksonville. A top 5 player drops to Jacksonville. Hyatt ends up in the Giants. Jahmyr Gibbs in Dallas. Seattle trades up for Will Levis. Luke Musgrave to the Bengals. Brian Bressie to the Saints. Texas keep 65, but move 33 in the 3rd rounder from Cleveland. And the Chiefs get the Northwestern defensive end born in Kansas City, Missouri to end the 1st round. How do you feel about this mock from 1 to 31? 3 Card Monte draft here on Draft Utopia. How do you feel about the game? Was it fun? And what were your thoughts on the mock overall? Honestly, Joey, how do you feel about this mock? It was kind of fun. It was random, also kind of fun. Because a lot of plot twists we didn't expect happen. From 30. A lot, I'd be open to doing this again in future episodes of Draft Utopia. It was kind of fun how the randomness of the draft gave it that uncertainty, that real-life draft element feeling. And that's why the draft is awesome, is the uncertainty of it. I don't think Richardson goes number 1 in real life, but it is the uncertainty, the upside, the arm talent, and the shock value that such an attention grabber.
Well, this draft was interesting.
What was interesting about it? Just the fact that there was so much randomness, or the fact that so many things happened. Tyree Wilson drops the Jaguars. The frickin' Will Levis falls to Seattle at 27. I mean, this is not going to happen in real life. I just think this is that if well, that's what happened in draft day. Bo Callahan fell to 6, and the Seattle Seahawks gave the Browns 3 first-round picks to get Bo Callahan. That would never happen in real life. And Costner ends up getting all his picks back, and David Putney. How could I forget David Putney on special teams? But yeah, this was random, yet still more realistic than the movie Draft Day. I still think this mock, as random as it was more realistic than the movie Draft Day. Final thoughts on that, and then we'll wrap up.
Yes. Draft Day was a mess.
Yeah. And I wanted to do the interview with Kory Curtis and then to have this fun event afterwards and then to be done by noon or 1. That was the goal. It's 12:53. We accomplished that goal. And we'll be back next week with Stanley Cup predictions and NBA playoff predictions. Because the NBA playoffs start next Saturday. Stanley Cup starts next Tuesday. The play-in games are next week, but Joey really doesn't give a crap about the play-in games. Neither do I, if I'm being honest. I think if you're going to have the play-in games, you should remove the teams that make the play-in games from the NBA lottery. If you're going to keep the play-in games, but give the teams that miss the play-in games a chance to get the number 1 pick, I think that's bullshit, personally. I mean, if you make the play-in round, you're not eligible for a top 3 pick. That should be the new standard, in my opinion, because the playoffs, if you really think about it, the NBA should reduce their lottery to 10 teams so that the teams that don't make the play-in tournament are guaranteed the number 1 pick. That's really the fairest way if you think about it, but that's another conversation for another day. We'll be next week with NBA and NHL playoff predictions. 2 weeks from now, Tony Mario's 7 draft will be up on Draft Utopia. My 7-round mock draft realized. Also have YouTube videos of Quentin Johnson and Zay Flowers ready to go, and Kalijah Cansey. So I've got film cuts of all 3 of those young men ready to go for the Draft Utopia YouTube channel. And enjoy your Easter, guys. I'm serious. Tomorrow is Easter. If you have family or you want to do something fun with your family, go out, do that, have some fun. And finally, I'd like to thank Kory Curtis for calling into the podcast. He was amazing. He killed it in the interview today, Joey. That's pretty much going to wrap this up. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything you want to add before we sign off for good?
Nope, we're good.
All right, see you guys next Saturday.